All right, we are recording. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the first session of a new series, a MIA series where we are hosting all the Azure MIA group leaders from across the region to learn more about the latest technology updates and all the interesting topics that they come with from their hands-on experience. In the Reactor, as you know, the Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, and connect to local peers, as well as industry-leading ideas and technology from Microsoft partners on the open source community. It's also the home to the Microsoft for Startups program. I have the pleasure of leading the Reactor in Abu Dhabi, which now with all the online programming and workshops that we're doing is not only giving access to these locally, but this is a Reactor for all of you across the MEA region. And we're so excited to have this community grow and also to have wonderful speakers from all across the region. Allow me to quickly start sharing my screen for today. If you haven't checked in, please do so. This is for you to access all the event resources that are related to this event. This is also a chance for you to leave us some feedback later on after the session ends to tell us more about the topics you'd love to see in the Reactor. So please visit the link here on that I also shared in the chat and also use the event ID associated with today's workshop. Today's workshop is part one of two parts where we will be talking about Azure Disk Encryption. As I mentioned before, my name is Hassam Hussein and I lead the Reactor in Abu Dhabi. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter if you have any questions. Also on topics, I share lots of learning resources and opportunities from across the region, so you can also benefit from that and all that are also all the happenings from the Reactor. Today's speaker in the first part, again, this is a MIA series. We have Mallik, who's a cloud solution architect working for Qatar Airways. He has a wealth of experience on today's topic, and he's an Azure community leader. We're so excited to have you for this week and for next week as well. Taking us through this interesting topic, and we're excited to learn from you and you know have the community interact and engage with all the questions. I don't want to take long in the introduction. I would love to hand this over to Mallik to start the session.
Yeah.
And
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Again, quick reminder, make sure you are checked in. And also, yeah, this is a very important one. Make sure you keep this environment friendly for all. I'm sure you all know this by now, but it's worth mentioning quickly that we're all here to learn. So keep this a friendly environment for all. Keep sending questions across on the chat. I'll be moderating and monitoring these, and we will have stops to address these questions. Now I will hand over the mic to Mallik to start today's workshop. Off to you, Mallik.
Thank you, Hassam. Yeah, I'll start with my screen sharing.
All good?
Yeah. Thank you everyone for taking your time joining for today's session. Again, warm welcome to the Microsoft Reactor MIA series. Today we are going to discuss about what is Azure Disk Encryption, and this is a series. Today we are going to discuss about Azure Disk Encryption on Windows virtual machines. On coming Tuesday, same time, we will be discussing how to do the Azure Disk Encryption on Linux virtual machines. Yeah. Let me go to the next slide. As I said, this is the session to go through about Azure Disk Encryption for Windows virtual machines. This is the agenda for today. We'll see what is Azure encryption, and then what kind of data encryption is available for Microsoft Cloud Services, and then we'll see what is Azure Disk Encryption is all about, and then we'll have other encryptions which is available in Azure, and we'll see the comparison, what is what and what is going to provide what kind of encryption for us. And then we'll little talk about Azure Virtual Machine extensions, where we are going to be, deploying doing the disk encryption using an extension. So I will talk a little about extensions. Then we'll move on to the real-time demo. So today I have planned to perform the real-time demo using the Azure Cloud Shell, using the PowerShell commands for the Azure Disk Encryption. And then also today I'm going to give the how to do the same through Azure DevOps. Okay. So these are the two demos which are there. Please hold it. So you'll be excited to see how we can do it in the DevOps. So while you create a VM and in the post provisioning of the VM, how to do the disk encryption in a single pipeline. The Hassan has given my introduction. Thank you, Hassan, for the introduction. I'm the myself Mallikarjuna Tunga. You can call me Mallik. I'm the cloud solution architect. I host Azure Tech Community events too. I am the owner of Azure Qatar, a meetup group. I host events there. Also host events. We speak events across the MENA region, not limited to. Yeah. These are the few industry recognized few certifications about me. It speaks about me, what I am all about. You can call me Mallik. This is a short bio of me. Let's move on to the next slide. So before we start, I emphasize to put all your questions, during the chat and try to utilize this session to ask more real-time questions, or in case you have any troubles in executing this Azure Disk Encryption, or you have tried out and you face some issues, and definitely I'm allowed to answer those questions. Please use the chat on the right-hand side top of the corner. You will find a chat icon. In that you may post your questions. Feel free to do so. Yeah, let's move on. So introduction to Azure encryption. Azure provides various ways or various options to secure and protect the data. Two ways, where the data is in rest or data is in transit. If you see the Azure services, I mentioned here only few, like Azure Storage Service or Azure Blobs, where you're doing the client-side encryption. We talk about Azure SQL Database. As Azure SQL Database have multiple options to secure your data doing encryption, column-wise encryption, row-wise encryption. We talk about when you talk about the also the Cosmos DB. There are various service offerings which has this encryption feature can be enabled on, right? Even Azure VPN. So these are the Azure few services only I mentioned here where this encryption feature can be enabled on to safeguard the data. On the right hand side, if you see the ways to do the encryption, how we can perform, either we can perform on the server side encryption or a client side encryption. We'll talk about encryption at host in short. When you talk about server-side encryption, service managed keys, what is service managed keys? It is the Azure managed keys. Using Azure managed keys, you will find the encryption done on by default, most of the Azure services. It is also known as, when you talk about server-side encryption, as soon as you deploy your Azure resources, automatically encrypts your data, which is stored on Azure managed disks. Let's say the OS and data disk. Before it is persisting to the cloud, basically, the storage backend. And then when you talk about the encryption on host, it is nothing but the host where your virtual machine is hosted. Okay, in the cloud, Microsoft Cloud, encryption at host in the sense the host where your virtual machine is hosted. So with that, there we are trying to do a encryption. It is about the the data flows, okay, from your virtual machine to the VM host and to the storage service. We are talking about Azure Compute and we are talking about Azure Storage, where the storage service is being provisioned for the virtual machine. So these data flows can also be encrypted, using the method of encryption at host. So there are methods which are being used to do an encryption, like a server-side encryption or a client-side encryption, where you have already done your encryption and then you are bringing your data into cloud. That is the one option where you are doing from your the client-side encryption, and we can do at the encryption at host 2. Okay, there are few options which we will discuss today. Out of these options, we will be discussing about the Azure Disk Encryption, right? When we talk about the data encryption, data either when it comes to cloud, the data either it will be at rest or it will be in a transit, right? So what Microsoft approach is? Microsoft approach to the enabling 2 layers of encryption for data at rest or data in transit. To simply put, but we most of us have the 2-factor authentication for a kind of a secure login. Nowadays we are doing after providing your password, we may provide a soft token, or getting the OTP from a SMS or email. The same thing. It's a kind of a equivalent to 2-factor authentication. We're talking about a double encryption. Okay. Well, let's say with data is at rest and you want to do a double encryption. What is double encryption? By default, Azure does the encryption with its platform managed keys. On top of that, if you want to enable encryption using your own keys, maybe customer managed, that is called as a CMK, which is a customer managed keys, so that you will achieve the double encryption, right? So by default, any disk you deploy is being encrypted using the platform managed keys. On top of it, we will apply the customer managed keys. That is what today we are going to see, which we are going to apply the double encryption. So we have seen what is Azure encryption. Then we'll just little know about how data encryption at rest happens in Microsoft Cloud. Okay. So in Azure, the encryption at rest design uses the symmetric encryption, to the encrypt your or decrypt your data for large amounts of data very quickly. Before it uses the encryption key to encrypt the data as it is written to the storage, right? So, and in case if you want to read the data, the same encryption key will be used to decrypt the data. It is stored in memory. The key is stored in the memory. You will not see any different performance, log there. So the key is to resides in the memory while reading or persisting. It uses the same key to do the encryption. So Azure uses this symmetric encryption method to do the encryption. So we may ask, why do we need an encryption at rest? What is the purpose of it? Let's say the purpose of encryption could be to safeguard your data. Let's say, or to safeguard from the attacks, or somebody is trying to attempt to obtain your physical hard drive. Let's say your virtual machine is hosted on one of the your virtual machine data is hosted on one of the Microsoft data centers hard drive, and the attacker is trying to obtain the physical storage, right? So maybe the attacker may obtain a hard drive, right? But if the hard drive is being encrypted and the attacker has been obtained the hard drive, and definitely he would require to break that, he need to require the the encryption keys, right? That is how we are trying to protect here. We have an option to the purpose of the encryption at rest. If an attacker obtains a hard drive, the encrypted data, but he should have a keys, encryption keys to retrieve the data. That would be a tough, he has to defeat the encryption to read the data. So also the another option, let's say a few organizations, right, industry, governmental organizations, or any other organization which, let's say for the HIPAA, or PCI compliant. If you the organizations mandate, regulate to have the encryption at rest. For such requirements also, we can use for the encryption at rest, right? So by default, data is encrypted at rest with as I said, the by default all the data which is stored in Azure is encrypted with Azure managed keys. Yeah, this is the purpose of encryption at rest. So in Microsoft Cloud, when you talk about these most of all the service offerings, the encryption address is available when you talk about IaaS or PaaS or SaaS. In each of the service offerings, we have encryption addressed. So we have seen what is Azure encryption, and we learned about what is the need of what is the disk encryption address, data encryption address, and what is the purpose of it, and what is the service offering so far, which is available in for the Azure services. Now we'll see what is Azure Disk Encryption. Maybe sometimes I may be calling ADE in short form during my, so do not confuse. The ADE is nothing but Azure Disk Encryption. Okay, what is Azure Disk Encryption does? Basically it provides the volume encryption for the virtual machine OS disk or a data disk. Okay, Azure Virtual Machine OS disk and data disk will be encrypted. So using Azure Disk Encryption, you can safeguard your data, and also, as I mentioned, you can save to meet the the organizational security and compliance requirements. The Azure Disk Encryption can be applied on the virtual machines of OS flavor of Windows and Linux, and also on the virtual machine scale sets. Virtual machine scale set again comprise of Windows and Linux. Right. Today in this series we will be doing the Azure Disk Encryption for Windows and Linux. Maybe in the next months we'll try to plan to how to do Azure Disk Encryption for virtual machine scale sets too. Yeah. Yes, what is it behind? I mean, Azure Disk Encryption for Windows VMs. If you see, it uses the industry-recognized BitLocker, feature for to do the volume encryption. It provides the full disk encryption of the OS disks and data disks, and also the temporary disk. If you see the actual virtual machine compute, some of the VM SKUs you will have a temporary disk. When you do the Azure Disk Encryption, the temporary disk will also be encrypted. When you enable the ADE, the content, the data content will be the data content flows from the VM to the storage backend is encrypted. The data flows are encrypted. It means we have an encryption when you perform the ADE, right? I know some of you would have got the doubt why these the Windows Server here in the supported operating systems, right? See. For the Windows 2008, if somebody is using, and then you need to use the Azure Disk Encryption, you need to have the .NET Framework 4.5 so that it supports the Azure Disk Encryption. I know this is being decommissioned in last year, but in case if anyone who is using with the extended support and want to use the Azure Disk Encryption, yes, they can use, provided the .NET Framework 4.5 is being installed on the Windows Server 2008. Okay, we were talking about the compatibility. These are the supported operating systems which we have, where this Azure Disk Encryption is supported. And when it comes to the supported virtual machines, okay, in Azure, we have virtual machine sizes. I talk about the E series, A series, general purpose D series, and then we have memory optimized E series, and then bustable VMs, B series. There are many sizes available, according to our workloads, we can design the virtual machine. Here, the supported VMs, there are selected supported VM SKUs. Azure encryption is not available on basic and A series VMs. You have to note that, keep in mind when you're planning for Azure Disk Encryption for your virtual machines. And also the minimum requirement to perform the Azure Disk Encryption is the 2 GB memory. The VM should have a minimum 2 GB memory of the size. And there are few series of VMs which are frequently released without a temporary disk. If you see DSV3 size, VM SKU size has a temporary disk, but the recently released DSV4 doesn't have a temporary disk. When you select the VM SKU, automatically the temporary disk will be deployed. If you are selecting a VM SKU which doesn't have the temporary disk, that is not supported. So a VM SKU should have a temporary disk to support the Azure Disk Encryption. These are the few notable points I just mentioned here when you want to perform the Azure Disk Encryption. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you can disabling encryption. You can do that, but you need to, in case you have done the you have performed the encryption and you want to disable encryption for one of the disk. I mean to say, to differentiate between OS and data disk, that is not that not work. You need to disable the encryption for both the disk. If you have performed for the both the disk, you need to disable the encryption for both the disk for the Windows virtual machines. You cannot have encryption disabled only for one of the disks. Yeah, you have to keep that note. So we have seen what is Azure Disk Encryption, and then what are the limitations, what is required, I mean, what VMs are supported or what OS is supported. Now, why do I require an Azure Disk Encryption? Okay, see, these are the scenarios. As I said, in Azure, by default, data at rest is encrypted using the Azure platform managed keys. In case if you want to, let's say for the first requirement, if your requirement is to include only data with rest, data at rest, you can use the server-side encryption with customer managed keys. So let me before we go here, I'll try to show you in the Usam, you're able to see my screen, right? The Azure portal.
Yes, all good, all good.
Yeah.
For this content, whenever you can, try to zoom in just to make sure everyone is having good access. Thank you.
So when we see here, go to the virtual machine disk. If you see the encryption status, as I said, by default, when you deploy any virtual, the virtual machine OS disk or data disk, you see the encryption status is nothing but SSE is nothing but server-side encryption with PMK. PMK is the platform managed keys by Azure. So this is all about the third option. If you see the what third option is saying about, let me go back to the other. See, the third option is if your requirement includes encryption, if your organization policy allows to encrypt content at rest with Azure managed keys, then you don't need anything. You don't need to do perform any disk encryption. Right? If this is your requirement, the third item is your requirement, then no action is required. No. And then as I said, the double encryption, right? Azure is doing an encryption on top of it, bringing your own keys, and you want to do an encryption. Then you need to go with server-side encryption with customer managed keys. And the second scenario, where let's say you have the Windows servers with the unsupported, let's say we talked about the compatibility matrix, right? Where a Azure disk encryption is not possible. During such scenarios, the second option will work for you, right? If you're using a scenario called out in unsupported scenarios for Windows, you can consider using server-side encryption with customer managed keys. Customer managed keys will see that what are they? It is nothing but our keys using the Azure Key Vault service. We will be creating the customer managed keys, right? If you see here, this is the platform managed key. Okay, let me. Okay, quickly go and. I'm trying to show the SSE and CMK and PMK. See, these are the options available, right? When you're trying to create your virtual machine, by default, as I said, the default encryption is at rest with the platform managed key. In case if you want to have a double, kind of, where you have unsupported, where you Azure Disk Encryption you're unable to perform, then you can go with the second option. What is it? Which is nothing but Azure encryption at rest with the customer managed keys. Or if you are trying to perform the Azure Disk Encryption, which is nothing but a double encryption, where it is being performed by platform managed plus the customer managed keys. This is the option which I have shown there, right? So if you want, if the requirement is to include everything, right, all of the above, then end-to-end encryption, then here today's topic is about Azure Disk Encryption. That is all about. If you want to do end-to-end encryption, then we need to go with the Azure Disk Encryption. Okay, but a given point, you cannot use both. Okay, either you can encrypt a disk using the Azure Disk Encryption or a server-side encryption with customer managed keys. These are the requirements. Based on your requirement, you can choose the right one for which fits for you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now let's move on to the next slide. This is the comparison I was talking about. SSE is nothing but, the server-side encryption plus PMK, platform managed keys by Azure. And then you can bring in with your own keys, server-side encryption with customer managed keys. If you see the first table, when you are doing an encryption at rest with platform managed keys, which is nothing but SSE plus PMK, what you are going to get? Yes, you can encrypt you can have OS disk and data disks can be encrypted at rest, but not the temporary disks, not the caches, not the flows between, the data flow between your compute and storage. Okay. If you see these, the data flow encrypted between compute and storage, no, that is not encrypted. So this is the comparison table which we talked about. We talked about other options in the previous slide. Let's say you are doing an encryption rest with the customer managed keys. What do you get? Okay, here you are just getting the control of your keys. Since you are using your keys in the second option, you'll have a control about what kind of key or what kind of algorithm you are going to use for doing the, the encryption at rest using your own keys. Then when it comes to the Azure Disk Encryption, you will get encryption of your OS and data disk. Temporary disk is also encrypted. Cache is also encrypted, and also the flows between the Azure compute and storage is encrypted end-to-end. This is nothing but a end-to-end encryption. Okay. In if you see the Azure Security Center, right, where it sees we have Azure Security Center recommendations. I will show that in short. This is how it shows when you have the Azure Disk Encryption is there in Azure Security Center, it will show you healthy, right? And we talked about in the first slide, we talked about encryption at host, right, where the VM, the Azure Virtual Machine hosted, the Hyper-V we call, right? So we can use that. Encryption at host also provides all the end-to-end encryption. You can choose whether either encryption at host is the best suit for you or a Azure Disk Encryption. Okay, these are the comparison table. But with the encryption at host, there is a catch. Encryption at host means the Azure Security Center cannot monitor the it cannot monitor whether it is a healthy or unhealthy. Because the Security Center has a challenge to monitor the encryption status at host. That is only the thing. So even though you are encrypted your virtual machine, Azure Security Center will show you the status as unhealthy, with the recommendations that you need to keep in mind. And to add, I'm planning to host a session on the, the AKS nodes using the encryption at host for the AKS infrastructure, maybe in September. You can go to the meetup group of Microsoft Reactor Abu Dhabi, where you will find how to perform the AKS nodes encryption, disk encryption using encryption at host, which will be posted in September. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about what is Azure Disk Encryption, what feature it is. Azure Disk Encryption uses a BitLocker technology, to encrypt the volumes. We talked about, we saw what is supported, what OS versions are supported, and what VM size is supported. Now, yes, here we are saying what is it required. Now you have arrived. We have seen the differences, and we have found the comparison, right? You have seen the comparison table, and we have decided to perform a Azure Disk Encryption. Now, what is it required, right, to perform the Azure Disk Encryption? It is required a key vault. The key vault is nothing but a key management service which is provided in Azure, which is based on the FIPS. Yeah. And then in Azure Key Vault, you need to have this Azure Disk Encryption should be permitted to to retrieve the secrets and keys. You need to give the permission either at creation of the Key Vault or for the Key Vault. Let me show you that also. If you while creation also you can select that. If you go to the access policies, this is the option I was talking about. You need to allow your Key Vault in the access policies, Azure Disk Encryption for volume encryption, right? You need to enable this access so that we can start doing the encryption. So that is the requirement. And then you need to have a keys, KEK, asymmetric keys we need to be created so that we use for the the disk encryption. Key Vault is required, and inside the Key Vault we are going to have a KEK created. And then finally we need to have a VM extension. Using the virtual machine extensions, we are going to perform the disk encryption, right? These are all required. So how to perform it? There are various ways. You can perform using Azure CLI. Also, you can perform on the using the Cloud Shell, Azure Cloud Shell, using Powershell Commandlets, and also the Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps, you have the Powershell task, Azure CLI task, or a Terraform task. Using these, we can perform the Azure Disk Encryption, right? So as I said, we have seen right what is Azure Disk Encryption. To perform the Azure Disk Encryption, we need Azure Virtual Machine extensions. We'll see what are these. Azure Virtual Machine extensions are nothing but a small jobs, one-time jobs, or maybe the monitoring jobs where you want to deploy post-VM provisioning, right? It's a small application. What it will do, the automation task for you. This is about the virtual machine extension, right? So let's say if you want to monitor something, you want to have the network traces available. There are so many extensions are available. Let's say you want to do some, to execute some script inside your virtual machine. Once virtual machine is created, you can use the actual, the custom script extension. The third one, this actual Azure Virtual Machine custom script extension, where you can execute any script which you want. Let's say you want to execute a Powershell script, you can execute it on a Windows VM, since it's a Windows VM. And here we have the extensions which you are going to use, which is nothing but Azure VM Disk Encryption extension. In case of virtual machine scale set, this is the one, AZ VMSS Disk Encryption extension. There are many extensions available based upon your requirement. You can use an extension and start deploying it. What is it required to run an extension is nothing but provide a few inputs so that extension will run. We'll see that how we can how we are going to use the Azure VM Disk Encryption extension and doing the encryption for the data disks and OS disks. Yeah, this is nothing but a small application, which will be running post the VM creation. I'll show you that. Let's go to the virtual machine. On the virtual machine blade, you will find extensions here. You see, I'm already using the custom script. I'm using the network watcher. Okay, let me start this. Then it will show you I can show you more details. These are the extensions. If you go and click on add, you will find the all virtual machine extensions which are available. If you want to have performance diagnostics, you can deploy that. So I talked about the custom script extension. You can when you put that and when you say create custom script, it will ask you to where is my script. Maybe you can browse script file, or you can provide it from the storage. See, let me go to the maybe yeah. This is about the extensions. Okay, will not go much about these extensions. These are the small applications which are useful to do the post VM provisioning tasks. You keep that in mind. So here is the as we talked about how we can perform the Azure Disk Encryption. Today we are going to perform the Azure Disk Encryption using the PowerShell commands. This is a small snippet how we are going to perform. This is the, if you see here, this is the one, the Azure VM Disk Encryption extension, which we are going to use the Powershell commandlet for performing the Windows Disk Encryption. What is it required to perform? You need to have a VM and where the VM is running, the VM RG, and then which location the VM is been created, and the key vault RG, key vault name, and the key name. These are the 6 inputs which are required when you want to perform the Azure Disk Encryption of Windows virtual machine. Yeah. As I said about when you in the Azure Security Center, you will find alerts like this, the recommendations saying that the missing disk encryption for your virtual machines. Now, if you're using the Azure Security Center and the VMs are not encrypted, okay, then it will show the alert as a high severity. Then it recommends to encrypt the VM. I'll show that now. If you go to your security center, recommendations, if you see the this enable encryption at rest for the virtual machines. Virtual machine should encrypt temp disk caches data flows between compute and storage resources, right? So what is the alert is talking about? See, it is showing the VMs which are not encrypted. This is how it will show you the alerts in the Azure Security Center. Okay, let's start with the demo. So a demo will be targeting using the, first we will do the using the Powershell Cloud Shell, and then we'll go on with the Azure DevOps. I have a virtual machine, named it Azure Disk Encryption CLI, already created. And there is one more key point. Okay, let me open this. When you have a virtual machine and the and you have a data disk here. If you want to have encryption to be enabled on the data disk should be mounted inside the virtual machine. You cannot do an Azure Disk Encryption on a raw disk. It should be formatted. You cannot enable encryption just by attaching a disk to the virtual machine, right? You need to do the partitioning of the disk which you attach to the virtual machine inside your computer. Let me connect to this. So I have an OS disk and then I have a data disk for this virtual machine, which is running now. If you see the encryption status, currently it is with the server-side encryption with platform managed keys. What we are trying to do, we are going to put double encryption by adding with the customer managed keys. So as I said, this is our key vault, which I created a key vault before the demo. And the key vault, I already enabled the Azure Disk Encryption for this option, and I created my key. The key for today's demo, which is nothing but this is the key name. If you want to create your key, AK02, and you can put your RSA size, whichever you want. In case if you want to set an expiry date and you want to do your rotation of the keys, then you can set your expiration date. For this demo, I'm just creating a demo key here. This is how it is. Key is created. So as a prerequisite, so we have a key vault and we have keys, and then we have enabled the key vault for Azure Disk Encryption. Now the key vault is ready. And we have a virtual machine which has a OS disk and data disk, which is of SSE with PMK as of now. Okay, let's move on to the Powershell. So it's nothing, there's the same snippet of code which I presented there. Okay, let me take the VM name. So I've given the the VM name. Okay, I gave the okay. This is the resource group. Resource group need to be changed. I'm setting the environment. So we have, as I said, we need these 6 variables, right, to perform the encryption. Now we'll get the key vault details. So this command, what it is trying to do, it is going to retrieve the key vault details, and then after that we are going to get the key vault URI, the resource ID, and then by retrieving the key vault URI, we are going to get the KEK URI, the endpoint. If you see here, this is the resource ID which you are trying to get, and then the key ID, and then what we are doing, we are trying to store in this variable in the environment, current Powershell environment. In case if you want to see this, this is the where we are derived the values from the key vault. So now this is done. Before I run, let's go back to the virtual machine and extensions. Let me show you that. So this is now I have a custom script, I have a network watcher. What I have done using custom script, I formatted the disks, okay, during the VM creation. If you see the custom script, I've done the new volume using NTFS. You'll find out once you execute the custom script, you can come to the portal, and then if you click on it, it will show you what it has done on the custom script, right? Now it is healthy and the data disk has been partitioned using custom script. So now let's go ahead and do the encryption. So we are doing the encryption using PowerShell Commandlets and the Azure PowerShell. Okay. We don't have refresh here. We need to refresh the URL to see the latest extension being applied. You see the new one, the WinADE. I just named that as a Windows. The extension name, you can name it. I named it. It is running right now. And also we'll try to go to the disks, or we'll log into the VM too. Let's go to the VM. We'll log into the VM. And if you see the disks, right now the encryption status is server side encryption with the platform managed keys. Happen to log into this VM. As we discussed, this model, this VM SKU has a temporary disk. See, just now it changed. Now the VM, you see the lock here, lock icon. I think the encryption has already started. It is doing its job. The temporary storage D also being encrypted here. But try to refresh. Still ongoing. Okay, let's see the status. You see, extension is giving a status. It is saying OS volume is encrypted and data volume is also encrypted. Let's refresh this extensions page of portal. I hope you have seen this. I've just drawn the status of the extension. OS volume encrypted and then data volume is also encrypted. Also, we'll see the extension here. You see the provisioning succeeded, completed. Extension has done its job. We need to see the CMK here. Okay, here you see. You see here, we have done what it is doing. We have done a double encryption by using the server side encryption with the platform managed keys and the Azure Disk Encryption. Yeah. So that's it. We have done with the the disk encryption for the virtual machine. Okay. Here, okay, you are going to add one more disk, right? Let's say, for example, I'm going to add another data disk and I partitioned it. What happens? Either the agent will take its own time, the extension will take its own time to do the encryption, or a next reboot, your data disk will be automatically start encrypted. I mean, start getting encrypted. In case if you're adding an additional disk here, right? So the agent, the extension will do the job when there is a next restart occurs of your virtual machine, or agent's restart will do the encryption of the newly added disks in your virtual machine. Okay, let's move on to the DevOps. Okay, I have the Windows virtual machine here. I have my the virtual machine is being created using the Terraform code, and then post that I'm going to use the PowerShell script, to perform the Azure Disk Encryption. So let's take this pipeline. I have a pipeline. Let me show you the pipeline. Husam, all okay, right? I'm audible and everything is okay, right, so far?
Yep, all good.
Yeah.
Just to be cautious of the time also.
Okay.
We're approaching the end of today's session.
Okay, so okay, I'll take 10 minutes extra. Yeah, we'll try to close it. Let's try to start doing it. Let me quickly now what we have proved. Using Terraform, and then let me approve the Powershell. And let me show you the meanwhile that in the backend it will be created. So for the times caution, so you can add the PowerShell task here, right? Whatever were the steps what we have done here, I've just done some small scripting, and the same using the PowerShell task in Azure DevOps. Using the Terraform, I'm trying to create a virtual machine. After creating the virtual machine, I'm going to do the this is the script, the PowerShell script, which I'm doing using the Azure DevOps task. Okay. In case headers. Okay. I have two pipelines. One pipeline is doing with the Azure Disk Encryption with the PowerShell, and I'm doing it with the Terraform itself. You can do with the Terraform itself the Azure Disk Encryption. Okay, these two options are available. We take a time constraint. How much time we have? Some. We need to take the questions.
No,
too,
no worries. I mean, I can stick around, but I'm not sure about the members. In any case, if anyone needs to drop, we have this one recorded. Please make sure you're sending us questions on the chat. This is the only reason I was reminding about the time, but it's okay. No pressure on that. Just wanted to make sure that we are maximizing the engagement with everyone that attended. Of course, we want to benefit from all the experience and the topic of today.
Yeah. We'll take the questions meanwhile. I mean, let this pipeline is getting created. They are able to view the pipeline, what is happening. Husam, I'll starting with the first question. I'll try to take the questions. Okay, the first question posted by Pradeep Madhavan. Does Azure provide HSM-based security for Azure tenants? Yes, you can bring your the HSM key which is being generated on your on-premises, and then store that in your Azure Key Vault. HSM keys can be managed the Azure Key Vault with the premium. Azure Key Vault comes with the standard and premium. You need to curate your Azure Key Vault with the premium SKU. Then you can store your HSM keys, and then with that you can start doing your encryption. What is the best practice? The same again. One more question by Pradeep Madhavan. What's the best practice for keeping the encryption keys, whether it is offsite or with CSP? It all depends. When we talk about best practices on the Azure Key Vault keys, Microsoft says Azure in my Azure you need to enable the identity, and you have seen the managed identity. You need to enable the managed identity for the Azure Key Vault so that it is protected, and then you can have your you can bring the Key Vault into your VNet integration. The creating a private endpoint, you're securing an access. You can do that, and also you can enable the diagnostic logs for the Azure Key Vault, where you will know who has accessed it, and then what kind of IP, from which IP the Key Vault is being accessed. All these audit logs can be monitored, and then with the audit log enabling, then you can get the logs triggered from Azure Monitor, and then you can create alerts, to secure your Key Vault who is accessing and from which source, even the IP is recorded, that is one of the thing. And then also the access policies. You can limit your application when you go to the key vault and access policies. Let me go there. You can limit your access policies. You can provide access to an application or a user, like this, right? So you can safeguard your key vault. Okay, then let's go to the next question. Okay, question posted by Ramara. Why doesn't we see the key vault option on the portal? Yes, Azure Disk Encryption will not be able to do. You'll not be able to see the key vault when you are trying to do the when you are trying to perform Azure Disk Encryption. But as I shown, there are other options in case if you want to do the encryption with the SSE and then CMK. Yes, you will see the key vault. Yeah, I will show that. Let's see, go there. Okay, this is running. There's a concept called disk encryption set. You want to see if you want to do the server side encryption with the customer keys, then you can do that. Okay, here we are. If you see this now, what I'm trying to do with the customer managed keys, and then you will see the disk encryption set here. When you select this option, okay, I need to fill the basic. Let's fill the basic here. Okay. And then okay, we fill the basic and then go to next. Okay, customer. I'm not sure why it is not coming here. You have selected West Europe. Anything is missed out? Okay, it's not showing. I don't know why. Generally, it will show you the key vault here. Yeah, when you go with the custom managed key, then you will see the. Okay, here you go. Now some issue with the portal. If you see the ROM, if you're seeing this, you can see the key vault here, the key vault name. But you need to create the. If you want to see that, you need to create a disk encryption set. That is what you will be, missing to see that. If you create a disk encryption set, then you will see your key vault and key. Yeah, I think that you answered. Maybe Jyoti is asking, maybe have this PPT at the end of the session. Hussam, is that possible? Sharing the PPT in a PDF?
Well, we can do one thing actually. You can upload it to your GitHub, for example, and provide me the link. Okay. We can post the link on the meetups and on the check-in page. Yeah, I mean, this could be something, and the video is there. The session is recorded, so it will be available very soon also on our YouTube channel for all the community members that attended today, or whoever couldn't have a chance to attend it live. They will also still be able to watch it on YouTube. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, Jyoti. Yes, we can share that. You can come to the meetup group, and then where in the meetup group I'll be posting the GitHub link where the PPT is there. Okay. So Pradeep Madhavan is asking a question. Now we are doing a double encryption. Yes, using the double encryption with ADE. Yeah, the double encryption double encryption can be done in two ways, using the SSE and then the customer managed keys, or SSE with platform managed keys plus ADE. Yeah, this is double encryption. So to quickly conclude this, as I said, now we have seen the encryption using the PowerShell CLI here, and the VM got encrypted. Now I have a pipeline which I using the Terraform, complete Terraform. I have done the disk encryption. If you go here to the VM, I'm sure you are aware of Terraform. In case if you're not, see we are doing the encryption here. This is the job, right? If you see, let me increase the font little here. Using the this particular job of Terraform, we are doing the virtual machine disk encryption for Windows using Terraform. Okay, let's see what is the VM name. So we created a VM called Windows VM ADE with the Terraform. Let's go there and to check the status. So to differentiate, I have created 3 resource groups. One which I have shown using the Cloud Shell with the PowerShell in the Azure Cloud Shell. Now there is a DevOps PowerShell and then DevOps Terraform. So the DevOps PowerShell is still running. Let me, yeah, if you see this pipeline, it is doing its job. So Terraform is trying to create. This is where this job is pending. This is where this job does the encryption, the PowerShell task. It is just creating the public IP. Before that, let's go here. So if you see here, I have the VM. I have also a data disk for this into the virtual machine. If you go to the extensions, you see this is the one, Windows Disk Encryption, which is being provisioned through Terraform. Right. If you go to the data disks in the blade, and if you monitor for encryption on the data disks and OS disks, you see SSE with PMK and ADE. So we were able to do with the Terraform the Azure Disk Encryption while the VM creation. After VM creation, I perform the disk encryption. You can do that. That is where the automation is all about. DevOps. Azure DevOps gives the way to deploy the resources very quickly. Time to market. I think now the virtual machine creation is completed for the using. Let's see the PowerShell. Okay, Jyoti, you're able to see the Azure DevOps here. Jyoti is asking a question. He can only see the Create VM tab. Okay, maybe there is a lag in the video. Kusama, you're able to see my the Azure DevOps, right? User is unable to see.
I see your terminal actually. PowerShell.
PowerShell?
Yeah, I now see the dashboard. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
okay.
portal.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry for that. There is a little lag in between. So this is the DevOps. This is the task which I was talking about, Azure Virtual Machine Extension using the to perform the Azure Disk Encryption. And this is the virtual machine, and you see here this is already done. Okay, in case if you want to go into inside and see that, we can do that. And 1 more minute will take to perform that. We are extending 10 minutes already. Let's bear with me another 5 minutes and then we'll conclude this. So this is what the Terraform VM which we created, and so now another pipeline which is running where the Terraform is creating the virtual machine, and there is a PowerShell task which is pending to do. Okay. If you open the program in structure, you see here you see the BitLocker icon. Yeah. So this particular VM we have done using Terraform. It is encrypted. Okay, that's great. Let's close this. Okay. Now what we are doing, we have created a, this pipeline is trying to create a virtual machine with the Terraform, and then we are trying to utilize the Azure DevOps PowerShell task and do the encryption. There are various ways, whichever fits for you, you can do that. Whichever is comfortable for you. So these are the inputs which came from the pipeline. I have not given anything. The pipeline has given the inputs. It has taken this PowerShell RG, and then this the Europe, and then let me open bigger way. I hope you are able to see. Yeah, okay. So this is the VM name. So Windows VM, Azure Disk Encryption, PowerShell 01. Yeah, with the DevOps. It started doing that. Let's go to the other resource group and see. With the PowerShell, yeah. PowerShell, and then click on this. And then you go to extensions. Yeah, see, it is started. It is not yet completed here in Azure DevOps. It is happening. It is the PowerShell task it is being doing. So I just named it as enabling extensions for virtual machine. You can write your own code and you can add multiple extensions. Either you can add your Azure CLI to here to the pipeline after VM creation. As I talked about, all about virtual machine extension are nothing but to do a post provisioning. Yeah? You can do any sort of jobs which is required to be done for the post provisioning of the virtual machines. This is the Terraform VM, and go to the disks. Yeah, you see here the SSE PMK AD. Yeah, I think we go to the PowerShell now. PowerShell VM in Azure DevOps is still happening, not yet. Ram has asked a question. Is it possible to share the DevOps code, Terraform code? Sure, Ram. I'm the community member. I want to help the community and build the the capabilities for cloud. I definitely post the code, and in the Microsoft website, the GitHub portal, I will post this code. And what I will do, I will put the link once I post the code in the GitHub. You can download from there.
We will be having a follow-on session as well with Mallik next week. So we'll put all of these requests together and share it. So make sure that you don't miss next week's session. We'll try to post the links everywhere possible, but to know exactly where you find these resources, make sure that you join us next week, and we will guide you through where you can access the code and everything, and the link to Mallik's GitHub and presentation.
We're reaching now the Azure pipeline with PowerShell task is completed, and you could see the same output. Okay, the one which I show in the PowerShell in the beginning was the PowerShell. Yeah, the same output. Okay, in the DevOps. So these are the multiple ways to perform your Azure Disk Encryption for the Windows virtual machines. Sorry for that. Yeah, I'm done with the live demo. If any questions you have, you can post. You can go to the meetup group and then you can post the questions on that too. In case if you have any, post the session. Feel free to do that. That's all. I think from me, Hussam. I think we are good.
Awesome. Thank you, Mallik, for today's session, and thank you for taking part of this MIA series. I shared with the community members some links and resources to continue the journey. And again, today's session will have a follow-on one next week, same time, and hope to see you then. Make sure that you register. I put all the links to, first of all, in the chat. The first link is the link to the MIA series. This is where you will find all the sessions that are part of the series. One interesting fact is that we will continue to add some more sessions as more topics and speakers confirm. So keep an eye on that. It will have more stuff added. And a second link, I linked to the Azure Qatar group. So you can also join.
Yeah,
And
I'm presenting the screen where you, Azure Qatar group too. Yeah. Yes,
yes.
Husam. Yeah, we need to do that. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I put the link there, and I also put the link for the Reactor Abu Dhabi. So these are the two meetup groups, let's say, where you can find also lots of community events, and this series is posted both on both groups. And in every session, again, we have this check-in page where you use the event ID. For today's session, it is 14126. Use that event ID to access the resources, and also there is a survey link there to provide feedback on what topics you would like to see in the Reactor. Any feedback will be appreciated so that we can continue to bring you topics that
More
you are
sessions.
keen
Yeah,
to
more
learn more
interaction.
about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you again, Mallik, for joining us today and for sharing your
Thank you.
experience
So
with the
awesome.
community,
Yeah.
and looking forward to your session next week.
Yeah. Session next week. Hope see you guys in the coming Tuesday same time. Thank you all.
Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye, everyone.